Windows Form applications are event-driven applications. So in this video I'm going to introduce the concept of an event-driven application. Let's compare a console application versus a Windows Form application. When we would create console applications, the logical flow of the application would be as follows. The application would do some work, and then it would request an input from the user and then read in the user's input, and then do some more work, perhaps request another user input, and so on. So in a console application, the user interaction is very structured and predictable. We know exactly the control or the flow that the application will run, and we know exactly what user input will be asked when. When we build a Windows Form application, this logic is a little different. In a Windows Form application, we create a form object that persists in an infinite application loop. And this form object waits for some type of user interaction. And when the user interacts with the form, we have to handle that interaction. Now, in a Windows Form application, we do not know the order that the user is going to interact with our form. So we have to be able to handle any input when it occurs. If we kind of look at it graphically here, in a console application, this is what our typical logic might look like. Our application begins, the application does some work, requests some user input, reads in the user input, and then goes back and does some work until it needs the next user input. It prompts the user for the next user input, waits for the user to enter that specific input, handles it, moves on, and so on. And so our loop logic here, or the structure of our application, is very predictable. Every time we run this application, we know kind of the order that it's going to execute. In a Windows Form application, it's a little bit different. The way a Windows Form application begins is, when our application begins, a form object is created inside an infinite application loop. This infinite loop exists and it listens for specific events to occur. Now, when an event occurs on our object will handle that event, and then we come back to our infinite listening loop. Now, we do not know what event will occur or when an event will occur, but whenever an event occurs on our object, we immediately will handle that event and then go back to listening. And this application loop will persist until the user decides to close the application. So in the next video, I want to show an example of how we register events and set them up in a Windows Form application.